Welcome everyone, it's Laura Jacques-Gilmour here with your weekly collective card pull with the Remembering You Oracle deck. This reading is for the energy of July 21st to July 27th. Just notice what stands out for you and trust what resonates. This deck is one I created to help you reconnect with your own inner knowing. It came through my own process of remembering who I was underneath all the roles, patterns, expectations, and old stories I had been carrying. So when I use these cards, I'm not using them to tell you what to do or using them to predict your future, and I'm definitely not using them to replace your intuition. For me, the cards are more like a mirror. They give language to what your body, heart, and your own inner knowing may already be trying to show you. Before I share this week's reading, I want to share the process I use in my own daily practice before I pull cards. I like to ground first, I ask questions, I listen for what I sense, and then I write down what comes through. Once I get the vibe for the reading, I pull the cards and see what they confirm, deepen, or bring into clear focus. Because the whole point is not to give our power away to the cards. The point is to practice trusting ourselves again. So before we begin, just take a breath with me. Let your shoulders drop. Let your body arrive. You don't have to figure anything out right now. Just notice what you notice. The 3 questions I asked for this week were, what are we being invited to notice within ourselves? What are we ready to release, soften, or stop carrying? And what part of ourselves are we being invited to remember or reclaim? Here are the insights for this week. Question 1, what are we being invited to notice within ourselves this week? When I sat with the first question, the message that came through was the courage to change. Then I pulled the card grief. Interesting combination because we often think courage means feeling ready, feeling certain, or knowing exactly what comes next. But sometimes courage is simply allowing yourself to acknowledge that something has changed or that something needs to change. And with change, there can be grief too. Even when it's a change you want, even when you know it's the right thing for you, you can still feel sad about what you're leaving behind. Maybe it's a role you've carried for a long time or a relationship that isn't what it used to be. It could even be the version of you who learned how to survive, cope, and keep everything together. You might even grieve the years you spent living in a way that no longer feels like you. Grief doesn't always mean you want to go back. Sometimes it just means what you had mattered to you. It may have been familiar, comforting, or part of your life for a long time, and now it isn't there in the same way anymore. So this card doesn't feel like it's asking us to hurry through those emotions. It feels like an invitation to honor what is changing and what may be ending, because courage is not always about pushing forward. Sometimes courage is being willing to stay with what feels tender instead of judging yourself, pretending you're fine, or telling yourself you should be over it by now. The reflection question for this card is, what loss or change is asking to be honored? And for this reading, that might be connected to the change you know you are being asked to make. The second question was, what are we ready to release, soften, or stop carrying? And what came through for me with this card was fear or guilt for asking for what you want. Then I pulled the card curiosity. What I feel this card is showing us is that curiosity gives us another way to approach the discomfort. Because when asking for what you want feels selfish, uncomfortable, or unfamiliar, it can be easy to judge yourself. You might ask yourself these questions. Why is this so hard for me? Why can't I just speak up? Why do I feel guilty for wanting something different? But curiosity feels much gentler than judgment. Instead of asking what is wrong with me, you might begin asking, where did I learn this? When did asking for what I want start feeling unsafe or selfish? Or what am I afraid might happen if I give an honest answer? Curiosity gives you a little space to look at what's coming up without immediately deciding you need to fix it. It lets you wonder why or what may be underneath the guilt instead of assuming the feeling means you're doing something wrong. And maybe this week you don't need to have a clear answer yet. Maybe you just begin noticing what happens when someone asks you what you want. Pay attention to your first reaction. Do you automatically say, I don't care? Do you look around to see who or what everyone else wants first? Do you start softening your answer before you even finish saying it? Curiosity is really just asking you to notice those moments with a little less judgment. Because once you start noticing what has become automatic, you can begin to get curious about where it came from. The reflection question for this card is, what might become possible if I approach this with curiosity? And for this reading, you might also ask what comes up for me when I allow myself to ask for what I want. The third question, what part of ourselves are we being invited to remember or reclaim? And what came through was our inner authority. Then I pulled the card acceptance. At first, those things may not seem connected because we often think our inner authority means being confident, decisive, or knowing exactly what to do. But I think this card is showing us that inner authority can begin with being honest about what is already true. You might already know how you feel, and perhaps you already know what you want, or maybe it's asking you to acknowledge that you already know something isn't working anymore. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It just means you stop arguing with yourself about what you already know. Because when you keep second guessing yourself, it becomes really hard to hear your own answer. And maybe that is what inner authority is, trusting what you feel without immediately talking yourself out of it. You may not know what to do next, but at least you're being honest with yourself. The reflection question for this card is, what am I being invited to accept right now? And for this reading, you might also ask, what truth have I already been sensing that I'm finally ready to acknowledge? So let me bring this all together for you. When I look at these three cards together, what stands out to me is the emotional side of change. We often talk about change as though once we decide what we want, we should be able to move forward without hesitation. But these cards remind us that it might not be that simple. Grief asks us to honor what is changing, ending, or no longer available in the same way. Curiosity asks us to gently explore the fear or guilt when we begin asking for what we want. And acceptance asks us to stop fighting what we already know so we can begin trusting our own inner authority again. This doesn't feel like a week where you need to rush into big decisions. It feels more like a week to be honest about what's coming up. There may be grief around what's changing. Asking for what you want may still bring up guilt or fear, and there might already be something you know deep down but haven't fully admitted it to yourself yet. I think this is where the courage to change begins, not always with taking action right away, but with being honest about what you already know. So as you move through the week, Let grief remind you that it's okay to feel what is tender. Let curiosity help you notice what comes up when you think about what you want, and let acceptance bring you back to what you already know within yourself. Sending you all much love from my heart. If this reading resonated with you, I'd love it if you would like, subscribe, and share it with a friend to help build my channel. And if something about this deck speaks to you and you'd love to be part of bringing the first physical Remembering You Oracle deck into print for everyone, comment cards and I'll send you the details.